And so often what happens is we have this self-concept that is tied to a previous version of ourself, something that we've achieved or haven't achieved, or it's an identity that we've outgrown. It's either that we're operating in the past of a past version of ourselves, or, as you mentioned, this concept of future self. Future self can put you into this lack energy because it comes into this space of, I'm not there yet. And you put yourself into this frequency of lack because the 10K or the 100K or the whatever milestone, it becomes this line, this goal, this achievement.
This thing you're not.
That you don't have yet.
Welcome to the Rock Your Gift podcast. On this episode, I have the incomparable, the amazing Allie Kennedy. How you doing, Allie?
Sean, hello. How are you? I am incredible, and I'm so happy to be here today.
Awesome. So earlier we were talking about the idea of your gift, what you do, what lights you up, what brings you to that state of flow, and how you're bringing that into your business. So you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, I love the conversation we were having earlier. I'm excited to dive into that. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Allie Kennedy. I'm a sales and speaking mentor, and I specialize in speaking to sell high ticket offers one-to-many, and specifically for female entrepreneurs. And, Sean, I love what we were talking about earlier because we were really diving into like the energetics behind that, the energetics of who you're being. And I think it's so massive, especially when we think about Rock Your Gift, when we think about bringing a body of work to life. And we really were diving into this context of leading with the artist, leading with the creator, leading with this infinite identity. And, I know that you and we went in so many different directions on that just for the last 10 minutes before we jumped on here today. And you were saying that this is going to be a massive conversation for your audience. So I'm almost like, where should we even go first in this conversation? Like, what is it? We can talk about how to apply it to business. There's so many different directions. But when I think about, I know that you're in speaking and you're teaching your community and driving this movement of how to really bring their gifts to life and use their voice in a massive way. And there's the what to do conversation, but then there's this bigger conversation of who to be that makes the strategy work, that activates the strategy. So where should we drive the ship first?
I feel like the most important thing is to start with context, right? So we know that it's about high ticket. It's about selling. We both help speakers. We help people to generate more revenue from stages. And at the same time, right, it's also about the energetics. And the whole thing that we were talking about that I think is so relevant here is the interplay between those two parts. And the fact that we can help our clients to, get more sales, make more money. We can do it in our own business. But the real key to it is how we're tapped into, whether or not we're tapped into this invisible force. You call it the wealthy speaker, I believe it. You call it that wealthy energy. I call it the creator energy, or you could call it your God self. And that's the thing that's missing a lot of times from the conversations about how to make a lot of money as a business owner, as a speaker, and really looking at like, what is that practice for you? What is that for you that allows you to tap into that? Because it really doesn't work. This whole idea of like helping your clients like to make a lot of money or even being able to make an offer from stage unless you're connected to something deeper. I think of it as this invisible force. And it's sort of like we talk about this external stuff of make money in X amount per month, but it's all starts from this invisible internal source. And that's really where I'd love to have you kind of talk about like, what is that practice? What is it that you do? And how do you interplay these two sides of inner and outer?
Yeah. Okay, this is a great place to start. And when we think about this, and this is so big because, when we talk about wealthy speaker and our movement, it's the energy that we lead from. And I like to think of it, I call it the wealth zone, being in the wealth zone. And I almost think of it right? The zone, it's like a state. It's like an energetic state that you enter, and it's a choice. You can choose right now to enter it, to step into it. It's also easy to fall out of, and a lot of people will fall out of it. So the question becomes, okay, well, what is the wealth zone? You call it the creator zone. We've talked about it earlier as the God zone, and it's really it's a knowing. It's a connection to the infinite potential, the infinite intelligence, the infinite creativity. It's your connection to God. It's your connection to source. It's the connection to the number one reason that you're on this earth, which is to live in fulfillment of your God-given purpose that you and only you alone can bring to the world. So when I think about the wealth zone, or as you call it, the creator zone, or we'll likely interchangeably call it those three things in this episode, the wealth zone, the creator zone, the God zone, they're all the same thing. It is this state, it is a frequency in which you have a state of knowing. You have this connectivity to this, its source, it's God, it's infinite creativity. And when you operate from this frequency, this is a frequency of infinite abundance. It's a frequency of infinite opportunity. It's a frequency of knowing that you are the creator of your own reality, knowing that your word is law, knowing that when you operate from this state, this knowing that reality bends to meet you in this state, in this frequency, in this identity. And what I find now, we're humans. We're humans. So it's one thing to know what this state is. It's one thing to get into it, but as humans, what happens is we can easily fall out of it, and we can easily get into these cycles of chasing milestones, of chasing validation, likes or comments, or how many people subscribed, or how many people bought the offer, or how many people bought a ticket to your event. And we can easily fall out of it. And I know that that's something that you and I were talking about, is how does this apply to your business, or what does it look like? But that's really what I love to lead with. And I would even love to know from your perspective, right? When you think about the creator zone, I call it the wealth zone, you call it the creator zone. Like, what is the creator zone for you? What does it look like for you?
Yeah. So for me, it's all about taking that time especially like in the beginning of the day, like during that morning practice time, and being able to get inside of this awareness of what it feels like to be supported by something that's invisible. And getting out of the idea that it's about all on me and it's up to me to figure it out, and that it's all about this external result that is somehow the representation of my value. But getting in touch with that invisible source, and I do this through a meditation, practices on abundance, different types of statements that I love to recite in my mind and get myself connected to that power, because when I connect to that power, my day starts on the right frequency, as you were putting it. And a lot of times we're talking about money, right? We're talking about high ticket. We're talking about, making a lot of money with your gifts, and not just talking about, sharing your gifts and getting, I came from the background as an artist. So it's like the normal thing is the starving artist mindset. It's not like, that's not the conversation we're having. So we're talking about making a lot of money, but in order for that to be an aligned thing, to be living in, to be creating, you have to come from that place of realizing that money isn't actually this visible source. It starts from the invisible, which is that God force energy that we all have within us. That is where I feel like that creative zone starts to really get sparked, and you come back to your center and you feel like you're in the zone, and then you can go about your day from that base of power. So what about you? Like, what do you do to get into that zone?
Yeah, I actually made a post about this yesterday, and I love that you talk about this, like getting in this zone. And I'll talk about the creation from this zone, because the number one thing that I find is that if you want to go further and faster, whether it's growing your business or, you are a goal-oriented person, the number one thing is to actually shift from chasing this goal to stretching the context of what you're building to something so much bigger than you. So I had made a post yesterday about this, and I said there's a certain frequency to a woman who moves for a mission that's bigger than you. And we talk about it in the Wealthy Speaker Movement. We call it Operation Billions. It's our mission to impact 1 billion people worldwide by training an army of speakers. So when we think about this, how do I get in the wealth zone? How do I get in the state? Well, like, yes, I have practices where I'm working out, I'm eating clean foods, I'm going to church. I actually am reconnecting with God, I'm praying. But then there's also this like business aspect of when I go into the business, yes, I can maintain and create this state in my own personal practices and my own, identity, my self-concept and how we see ourselves. And I'd love to dive into that piece a little bit deeper today as well. But there's this context of shifting from selling a product or a service to being the steward of a mission, to being the steward of a movement, to being the steward and the leader and the pioneer of something that is so much greater than you. Because when you think about that, and when you think about this shift from, okay, today I'm going to go out and I'm going to go sign on some high ticket clients, or I'm going to go sign, X number of clients into my offer, or today I'm going to go launch this offer, right? Like there's a small energy to that. And it's very easy to get thrown out of that energy, right? Did somebody buy? Yes or no? No. Okay. Now I'm out of the frequency. But when you stretch this energetic context, right? When I think about this, your brand, when I think about your marketing, when I think about your content, when I think about everything that you speak into the world, there is this, it's like an energetic frequency, and it creates almost like this aura around your brand, around your words, around what you say. So for me, the first thing that I do to get into it outside of all those personal practices is I really reconnect to, why am I doing this in a way that's so much bigger than me? So when I think about that why, it's like, okay, I'm not just selling an offer on the internet. I am building a global army of speakers, and we are going to impact 1 billion people. I'm going to have to show up a lot differently to be the leader of this particular mission than I would to just go and post something on social media to sell an offer. So when I think about that, getting into state for me is I will have my daily practices of fitness or mindset or identity, but also I look in the mirror and I say, okay, well, who do I have to be today to lead this global army? Who do I have to be today to steward people from around the world who are going to go on this mission, who are going to carry the torch, and not just carry the torch, but if I want to impact 1 billion people, who do I have to be to not just activate people to come into our world, but activate other people to carry the torch with me and spread the mission further and faster than I could on my own? And even just right now saying that, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Something lights up inside of me, and that creates a state, that creates an activation, that creates an identity and a self-concept that is very, very different than, okay, today I'm going to go post on social media and sell an offer.
I love it. That's great. It's a great shift for people to look at. And we were talking about, the idea that you're not alone. I was talking about that a few moments ago. And so I think it's a really good, way to create a frame where you realize that it's not just that you're not alone because you're supported by, let's say, this God force, but because you have a mission, and that mission is real when you breathe life into it, when you're clear on what it is, and when you call that in and you look at the people that are coming forward to be a part of that you're also going to inspire to take that mantle from you. So I absolutely love that. I think that's beautiful. There's so many things that I want to dive into. One of the things that I would love to do, and one of the things that I think is really important that we do on every one of our episodes, is get a little vulnerable. I think it's really important to talk about, how you mentioned us being humans, and it's like we are fallible, right? We have these goals, we have these visions, we take these huge steps, we put ourselves out there, we create results, we create wins that other people look up to, and yet we also have these breakdowns. I'd love for you to share, like, what's that? Where have you found yourself off this connection point? Where have you lost yourself a little bit? And then how did you get yourself back on track?
Wow. Yeah. Where do we start with this one? And I'm going to go back to this context and this through line too, because we can talk about this, and I'm going to try to pinpoint a powerful place that I have fallen off. I feel like there's been so many. And it's the thing that gets you back in there, right? Because it's so easy to fall out of the wealth zone or the creator zone. It's so easy to fall out of this frequency because we're humans, and it can happen at any point in the day. It can happen any time. And, I always go back to, well, why am I doing this? So I'm trying to think of one that is recent.
You were mentioning that you took this week off.
Oh, because I was like, do I go there or do I go back? And
you decide.
Yeah, I have two that I can talk about because I don't want to go too far back in the journey, because I think that what can happen, and I want people to see this as well, is that, falling off is not always just, hey, I started and now I'm afraid, or hey, I just invested a lot of money in the beginning of my journey and I needed courage to start there. But when you're scaling, there's going to be new levels of courage. There's going to be new levels of fear. There's going to be new levels of, the glass ceilings that you meet yourself up against. There's going to be new levels of pressure. There's going to be new levels of, what you're navigating behind the scenes that most people, it's just going to change at every level. And it's almost like, it's like a video game, right? If you go up to level 2 or to level 3, there's going to be different bosses that you have to face, right? So this week we were talking about the energetic piece. And I was saying that I was really starting to feel depleted. I was really starting to feel like I just noticed I was in doing energy. I was in the doing energy where I started to get into that place of, I'm not feeling the zest, the charisma. I'm not feeling as forward as I normally do. I'm not feeling this life force energy flowing through me. And I mean, at this point, right? I mean, we're getting ready to publish volume 2 of Speak Your Way to Wealth. We just emceed a 1,000-person event last week. We were working with you on your event. We emceed your event not too far before that. We had a virtual event that we did with 600 people. So it was like one thing after the other, and grand slam, out of the park. And, you're at this place in business where you're doing big things. And there almost becomes this, and maybe it's a self-expectation where you're like, I have to keep going bigger, and I have to keep going bigger, and now I have to set the bar higher, and now we have to go to the next thing. And I just realized I was in Tampa. So I flew to Tampa. We have an event that we're doing in Tampa where, we have our wealthy speaker certification. We have this massive stage, 100-foot LED wall. The top celebrities in the world have filmed there, like Tom Cruise. The Kardashians did their season trailer there. The NFL films their brand assets, and we're building a stage there. So I flew to Tampa, and this was right before this past week, where I said I need to lean back. I need to take a week for me. And I was on this trip, and I went to this mastermind. I'm going to be emceeing this conference down there for a second year in a row. We went to go do a site visit of where we're hosting this event that we're having. And, we did a whole production day, and my videographer, and it was like this 48-hour trip. So in the middle of all these things where I'm already starting to feel, okay, I feel like I need a break. Okay, I feel like, and I'm going and I'm getting my nails done. I'm getting my lashes done. I'm getting massage. And I'm like, this isn't enough. I actually need a break. And then I go on this 48-hour trip. And the 48-hour trip was kind of like that time where I got to unplug long enough to say, if I keep doing this way, this is unsustainable. And I had a moment where I was talking to one of my girlfriends down there in this mastermind. And I was like, I feel like, I don't want to say that I'm burnt out, because I'm so driven by the mission. I wake up every day and I'm like, this is going to be the best day ever. But physically, my body it's not feeling the way it normally does. I feel lower energy. I feel like the zest for life. So I start talking to this woman, and she's telling me how she restructured her whole business. So she's 3 weeks on and 1 week off. And I said, that is the best idea I've ever heard. Because right now I have, I'll go Monday, Tuesday, and then I have Wednesdays a CEO day, but then I have Thursday, Friday. And it just always feels like, yes, it's this day in the middle of the week, but it's still like, I still go.
Yeah.
And I'm in a build season, and I have no shame about saying, I love to work. I love my business. I work on something almost every single day, probably every single day. So I got to this point on this trip where it was almost like that trip took something, the last I was like, wow, I'm feeling like if I don't take this week off, I'm going to start going backwards when I want to go forward. So I had to give myself this permission, right? I had to look at everything. This was actually really scary because now I'm like, okay, I'm leading these masterminds, I'm leading these programs, and now I'm going to go into my entire business and tell my clients, guys, I'm taking a week off.
Right.
So first of all, like number one, I had to go through this like internal recognition of like, I'm not feeling me.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't sustainable. I'm not in the energy that I'm preaching.
Right.
I'm falling out of it. Now, who am I going to be? And, so often what we can look at this level of leadership is like, what are people going to think of me? So this is what was going through my head. I'm like, what are my clients going to think of me if I go and I take a week off? What is this other program going to think of me if I say, okay, we're going to do an off week to implement? What is everyone going to think of me? And then I had to realize and say, no, like if I'm teaching people how to scale their businesses and I'm teaching people how to be leaders, and I'm teaching people how to expand their capacity to hold more, I have to model that.
Yeah.
So I went home, and this trip was really the thing where I was like, I'm at the end of like where I can go, and I need to clean up my boundaries and my capacity to hold more. So I went home and I told everyone, and I said, here's where we're going. And I led with the vision. Here's where we're going, and here's what I see for you. And I really see this new structure. And I did, and I painted the vision. I said, we're going to do this new structure, 3 weeks on, 1 week off. So I didn't even decide I'm just going to take a week off. I said, I'm going to take a week off every month to not just have space on the calendar, but whether it's work on me or my business or my personal life or my rest or rejuvenation or like all of this. So I had to give myself this permission, it's so interesting because we often think like, oh, I'm going to do more, I'm going to be successful, I'm going to do more, I'm going to make more money. But the more I was doing, it felt like I was starting to slip backwards. So it's almost like at this level, I had to detach from my ego of what are people going to think of me when I take this week off to I really need to get a second phone. I need to clean up the boundaries in Telegram. I need to clean up the boundaries in my mentorship spaces to hold more capacity. And so it really was like, I'm taking everything off the calendar. We're taking a week off, and it's not just a week, but we're going to do it every month. But that's kind of where I was at. I was starting to feel like I'm not the me that I want to be. It felt like I was starting to push. I was starting to force. I was getting into that pattern that we talked about of, okay, I need to make this post because we're in the launch and now I'm going to do the thing. And it was like the zest and the charisma was just starting to drain. So now we're in, this week has been like a very spacious, energetic,
nice,
no alarm, permission to be still. And I'm birthing the deepest and most profound body of work that has ever come through me because of this stillness. I have goosebumps saying that. And I truly, truly believe like if I didn't have that space to receive, what is the next thing? What is the next evolution of the brand of our voice? I would just be still in this push mode. And, we don't just build our lives and our businesses for money. We build it to have a life. So if we can't take a week off, if we can't reconfigure our energy and reconfigure what our next step is, what are we actually doing?
Yeah, that to me, like there's so many things that I want to dive into, but this right here is really important. And it's something I just went through. And one of the things that I was up against is that I was planning to do this event right after the last one that we just did. And it just didn't feel right. It was exactly how you were describing it. I knew that I wasn't going to be in the best place to turn around and do this event with very little time to rest. And also just I needed to recuperate. And I really needed to learn from some of the lessons that I had learned from that event that we had done. And I didn't have time to integrate any of that. So, and at the same time, I had some sponsors that were already committed to this. So my biggest thing was like what you were talking about, where you needed to tell your clients about the fact that you wanted this week off structure. I had to tell these two paid sponsors that the event that they had paid for was going to shift dates. And now I have to look at the question of, not only being upfront with what I need, but also the possibility of like a refund situation or what was the situation going to look like. And it was terrifying. I mean, I was actually like having these conversations with people in my life just to like get some support from them. And at one point, this person really asked me, okay, what do you want? What do you want? And he gave me a timer. He gave me 60 seconds. At the end of that timer, I said, I'm canceling the event.
Mm.
And it's stuck. He said, look, you can change your mind, but that's what you came up with. You gave you time, or you came up with it. And I was like, it's the right thing. And then through support, I had those conversations and I honored myself. And it was right then and there that like I felt that energy return. It was like that vibe came back because I finally gave myself what it needed. And I think it's so important when we talk about how to crush it and how to make money and how to create these results, because it's really this yin yang. And if we only talk about the doing, right, and what you got to do, and here's the structure and strategy, we're really leaving out the piece that most people are going to overlook. And that is that you have to be in a place of alignment. And I'd love to talk to you about that at a deeper level now, because we're talking about this idea of future self. People, a lot of coaches, a lot of mentors talk about, you got to embody that future self, right? Whoever that is that's already generating $1 million or generating $100,000 a month, we got to get into the vibrational frequency of that person. And one of the things that I was bringing up to you in our little moment before is that I believe it's a trap when we think about ourselves in the future, because it means that it's not here yet. So it's like, how do we get on a frequency of something that is in some time space that's not yet here, especially when we're thinking about like a timeline of the past future. I look at that as a horizontal timeline. And what I found a lot lately is that in order to really step into the energetics, first of all, it's what we talked about. We got to take space for ourselves. We got to honor and notice when our body is telling us, or any part of us telling us, that we need a break. And we need to have those conversations and be upfront with the people in our life, even if they're uncomfortable, because we matter. And that's how we win, is that we take care of ourselves. But the second piece of it is that how we get into that place, once we've given ourselves that space, where we're actually on the frequency of that higher self, and not so much about because he or she's in the future, but because you can actually access it now. I'd love for you to share like what comes up for you on that.
Yeah, this is so important. And off the back end of that last piece, it's like, if you can't lead yourself, how are we expected to lead all of these other people? And it's the most loving form of self-care is to set those boundaries and to take that space. So I love this so much. And it comes into this piece where we think about this state that we're operating in and who we're showing up as. And I know that we were talking about this too. It's, we don't have any other time but now. When we think about that, now is the only time that exists. And so often what happens is we have this self-concept that is tied to a previous version of ourself, something that we've achieved or haven't achieved, or it's an identity that we've outgrown. And it's either that we're operating in the past, of a past version of ourselves, or, as you mentioned, this concept of future self, where future self, what I find is future self puts us into this lack energy. And we were using this analogy before we jumped on. Future self can put you into this lack energy because it comes into this space of, I'm not there yet. So we were using the example, and we were talking about scaling. And I was saying, okay, so when we go to this context of going to 100K months, let's say 100K cash months. Okay, well, when we think about 100K cash months, if you put yourself into this future identity, you can fall into a trap. And now, depending on where you're at, could look different. This could be, I fell into this when I was going to 10K months in the very beginning of my business. I need to hit 10K months to have made it. I need to have 10K months to have made it. And you put yourself into this frequency of lack because the 10K or the 100K or the whatever milestone, it becomes this line, this goal, this achievement.
This thing you're not.
That you don't have yet. So instead of the future self-identity of who do I need to be a 100K cash month me, it becomes I do not yet have 100K cash months. So the future self, I believe, puts you into a lack frequency. And the best thing that we can do is we can detach from any of these timelines. So if you imagine, like right now, your energy is like this, it's like these golden threads that are going into where you're directing your energy. So if we're directing our energy towards previous version of you who's made, let's just say $50,000 a month, or current version of you who's making, whatever per month, and future version of you that has not yet made $100,000 or $500,000 or $1 million a month, like we need to first snip out all of these threads that are going anywhere but right here and right now, because what's happening is you're diluting your energy and you're diluting your potency, and you're living in these other timelines that are not now. So it's weakening your field. It's weakening your energetic field. So the best thing that we can do, and I was talking about this with you beforehand, is that it's almost like 10xing your goal. Instead of saying, I want to go to 10K months, okay, how can we embody the version of you who, it's not just I want to, it's an I am. It's a completion energy. It's when we speak, knowing that your word is law, knowing that what you speak into reality, your reality will rearrange and bend to meet you there. So instead of saying an I want, which is like a lack I don't have yet, who would you be if you have already completed that? It's a completion energy. It's a knowing. It's like, I am meant for this. I am on the journey of receiving this, or like, I am this. It's more of a completion energy. So when we think about that, and instead of like a 10K, it's like, okay, the version of me who has already achieved 100K months, what does that identity look like now? Or the version of me who has already achieved $1 million months, it is already done, it has already completed. Who do I be now that I have already done it? So when you can direct all of your energy into this now state of a completion energy versus a lack versus an I have not yet achieved, and it's like a command energy. It's like you're commanding the field. Okay, so now I'm going to show up, and instead of directing all of these different lines and these frequencies to other timelines, I'm in this now energy. I'm getting out of the lack energy. I'm getting into the completion energy, and I'm directing all of my energy towards this self-concept of Allie Kennedy, who has already achieved $1 million months. What does that identity look like now? How do you operate? Now, what are your price points? Now, what are the standards in your spaces? Now, what is the energy that you lead from? Now, what is the energy that you sell from? And it's like it's a command energy. It's a completion energy. And I really, really believe that this threads into everything, right? This threads into the construct of your brand and all of the energetics of every word that you write and every piece of content that you put out, or every DM sales conversation that you have. So it's this command energy. And when you're in this command energy, and it's not an ego thing, it's a knowing. We talked about God's state, knowing that you are meant for this. If it is in your mind, you can achieve it. You've already achieved it. It's just that reality hasn't caught up yet. So when you command from this energy, it's this knowing, it's the completion energy, you direct a stronger frequency and a stronger state. It's like this frequency, and people feel it, and they notice it about you, and it's a magnetic field. What happens is your reality will start bending to meet you. You'll start attracting different clients. You'll start attracting people who are paying you more highly. You will start, right now, I'm noticing like our following on Instagram specifically is even growing faster and faster and faster now that we are putting this energy in every piece of content. So it's like this command energy from a state of knowing that it is completed and you are it now. And it's a very different frequency of, I need to get to X and I don't have it yet. And it's a lack energy.
I love it. Yeah. Everything you're saying, it's just really beautiful, lighting me up and connecting me into a different perspective on this idea of future self. And I love just kind of like crossing out that future self and really stepping into this idea of this is now. This is me choosing to be on the frequency of this version, right? It's not future self, it's version of self, right? And therefore we're not on a timeline with this conversation and we can access it. So that's, to me, like, beautiful. One of the things that I do in order to get there, and this might help some of the people who are watching or listening who also feel like they love getting into state, but like sometimes they just don't believe in themselves enough. Like, how do I find that? How do I get on that frequency? Simply looking at what are the beliefs you have that say you can't, and then being able to actually reframe those, and then cutting those old beliefs out of your thinking at all. Like if you write it down on a piece of paper on the left-hand side and you write, okay, why I'm not where I want to be, or why I can't get into that $1 million version of me. Like, what do I believe about myself? Oh, it's not possible. Oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I don't have enough clients. Oh, like I don't have enough of following, like whatever those things are, right? We put all those things down because we want to acknowledge those things. I feel like a lot of times people want to avoid outside looking at that. Tony Robbins used to say, it's like, you can't go to like, gardening and go to try to like plant new flowers and be like, there's no weeds. Like, no, there's weeds. Like, let's look at the weeds, because if you don't look at the weeds, we can't pull them up. So we look at those things that have you in disconnection or doubt or disbelief. Then we like to write on the right-hand side of that piece of paper, I'm so happy and grateful now that, and you flip into that version of you that knows that answer, and you write what comes up that like is that truth. And then you cross out or you erase or you rip out all those other beliefs. And now you step into owning and reciting and connecting to that. So that has been a really helpful practice, because, how I come up with the best affirmations for me is they come from, the positives of these negative thoughts that have been kind of festering. I find them and I root them out, and then I retrain myself on this new, and my frequency rises because now I believe it. It's no longer like I'm trying to get myself to believe, right? So I love this. I love this idea of like stepping into this, because it's everything. You want to step into a higher identity where you believe that you can achieve these kind of revenue goals. It's imperative that you get into the frequency, and anything that tells you otherwise is going to be a dead end road. So I love where we're going, because we want to help people. It's not about just talking. It's not about just like, look at me. It's none of that. You and I have been in the game long enough where it's what we're here for is to truly create transformation, where people that connect to this podcast, people that connect to us and our services, they're changing. So I feel like we're on that track. So I want to ask you something else, and then we're going to have to wrap up in a few minutes. So this one has to be short, and I'd love to know how people can connect with you in a moment. But right now I want to ask you about this identity of the Beyonce of branding. I love this idea of being able to create an alter ego and being able to step into it. I love it because I was a big fan of Kobe Bryant and the Mamba mentality. And, it's something that I really resonate with, where we can step out of this box of who we are, step into like this new identity. So tell us a little bit about that, and like, what's that about for you?
Yeah, this is a great question, Sean. And I know we were just talking about this self-concept piece, and I love to really think, there's a cap to what you can do, and there's no limit to who you can be. And at the same time, it only takes a moment to decide to step into a bigger version of yourself. So there's this decision energy, and the decision, decide comes from the Latin root, actually means to cut off. So when I think about this identity and this self-concept identity, I'll never forget this declaration I made. And I want to say it was in 2022, and I made a post about it on Instagram. If you scroll back far enough, you can see it. And it says, I'm stepping into my Beyonce energy. And it talked about all of those different things around it, investing for me, not for a result, these different energetics that we're talking about. So I made this declaration to myself and publicly, that I was becoming this version of me that I had not yet stepped into. And everything really started to shift to match. Now, when I think about this, it's so interesting because I don't think so many people saw this, because not a lot of people were following me, but it started to catch on, and people started calling me like the Beyonce of branding for the stage. Even now people are calling me like the queen of the stage, or like the queen of sales speaking, and different things like that. But it all started with this decision that I am Beyonce. Like, I am Beyonce. I am the Beyonce of my industry. And I started making a bigger deal of everything that I was doing. And, right now I'm actually like studying P.T. Barnum and like how he was this big deal marketing. But that's what I was doing at the time, is what I realized. I started with this big deal marketing. I decided I was a big deal. And right, maybe for you, it's not Beyonce and it's somebody else, right? But it's like, I decided I was a big deal. And then everything I created had a frequency to match that. So it's almost like we're going back to this command energy. It's like, I am Beyonce. Okay, now I'm going to show up as Beyonce. I'm going to show up with that level of importance, with that frequency of, okay, I'm Beyonce. I sell out my offers. I'm Beyonce. I sell out my events. I'm Beyonce. People come from around the world to come see my shows. I am Beyonce. Now, what does my branding look like? And I remember I started wearing, like, I have the picture, and I was downtown in San Diego, and I had this big fur coat on, and I'm like, I'm Beyonce. And I have these like big hoop earrings, and I'm like starting to do my nails. And at this time, I wasn't really paying attention to little things like that. So the details started to unfold, and it's like these nuances of the craftsmanship of my brand. So I'm starting to wear, like, I'm getting my nails done regularly. I'm caring about what my hair looks on camera, the details and the intentionality of my video at home, things like my makeup, and I'm starting to do my lashes. So now my identity shifted to match this level of, I like to think it's like the already famous identity that we have in Wealthy Speaker. I'm like, okay, I am already famous. Not when more people follow me, not when people buy from me, but now. And now what does my identity look like? So I think so often people will find this, they think, oh, I'll build a bigger brand when. I'll build a bigger brand when more people follow, when I hit a certain milestone. But I flipped the narrative and I said, no, I'm going to build a bigger brand for me because I'm already famous and this is my self-concept. And that's what actually started getting people to follow. So we started making like brand videos. I know you do these like rap videos and stuff. I know that's one of the reasons we connected. I'm making these brand videos and nobody knows who I am, but I'm like sending the video to Fiverr and getting the designer and we're doing the photo shoot, and like everything turned into this big production, this bigger deal. It's like, okay, if I'm already famous, now what's the launch look like? If I'm already famous, now what does the branding look like? If I'm already famous, now what does this look like? And what happened was this energetic, it's like this fame frequency, this aura that my brand was emitting, it started getting bigger and bigger and people were noticing. Well, now people are inviting me to speak on their stages and paying me to speak. And now I'm getting like event consulting deals with 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs. And it was like growing and growing and growing. But it all came from this self-concept of, I am already famous. So like that, we talk about that timeline of like, not when, but right now. And because of that, I've set this new standard. What does everything look like? And it's like, I go back to this energy. It's like, Speak Your Way to Wealth, which is the name of our book. It's not just a catchy tagline. It's actually like, you are the creator of your reality. Your word is law. And when you can speak with that knowing, when you're in the God zone and you're in this creator zone, and you speak with this knowing of, I am famous, I am this person now, I have already made it, everything starts to shift around you. The world responds differently, people respond differently, people see you differently, but it all starts with your internal self-concept, and then how you value your own self, how you value your own work, how you value your own brand, because marketing is like a mirror. So when you see yourself as somebody important, somebody with value, somebody who's made it, other people are going to see you as that. So it's like this context of the Beyonce, and it's, I still right now, like I have like my gold jewelry on and I have like my nails, and it's like when I have these things done, it makes me feel like this different version of myself. Even right now, like I work from home and I wear heels every day at work. I get dressed up, I do my hair, because it changes my state. And when you change your internal state, you change your internal identity, you're going to attract a different result and you're going to attract a different level of client. So, it's one of the things that I love to just lead with. It's whether it's Beyonce or we were talking about, even if you're already famous, like the David Bowie going to the Ziggy Stardust, it's like, how can we push the edges of your self-concept to be more expressed in your already famous identity and just be so in the knowing of like, it's already done for you. How can you show up as that now? And then reality will bend to meet you there.
I love it. I think it's rare. I don't see it a lot. I think that it's what is missing from people really breaking out of the box. I just see most people stuck inside of their identity. And I think that there's this, not about being somebody else. And I think that's hopefully really clear to everybody who's been listening today. We're not talking about like, let me get into this other identity because I'm not okay as I am. But actually there's like this fully expressed version of who you are that is really like calling you to bring it out. And it requires boldness and risk taking. And it requires that you're going to have some people be like, whoa, wait, what are we doing here? Why do you have green hair now? Like, what is this? Or people being like, I like the old you, or whatever, like people who feel like threatened by the change, right? So there's a risk that you step into by being that bold version of you. But that's what's missing, I think, for most people, is realizing like it's your game, it's your show, it's your opportunity, because you get to be the creative force of your business, of your brand, and no one is going to create that for you. But inside, you're dying to let that out. I love that you're giving people permission to do that. So it's been an absolute amazing episode. I want you guys, if you're watching, you're enjoying it, go ahead and click subscribe. Make sure you click the like button, share about this with your friends. I'd love to hear from you. Like, what is it that people can do to get to know you more, to follow you? You have any free gifts? How can we learn about your work?
Yeah, thank you, Sean, so much for having me. And it's like this whole journey of entrepreneurship, it's vulnerable. It's vulnerable because the bigger you go and the more you raise the bar, you're always going to have somebody that doesn't like you or doesn't agree with it, or like they like the old you. But, we get paid to evolve in this industry. So, I love that. And I love that you're giving other people permission to rock their gift and to lean into this expression. So thank you so much for having me. So if you are loving this, I would love for you to come and connect with me on Instagram. My handle is the Allie Kennedy, TheAllykennedy. We have a free Telegram community. It's called Wealthy Speaker Backstage. You can go to wealthyspeakerbackstage.com and join us in there. Lots of trainings. I'm bringing everybody behind the scenes of how we're scaling to $200,000 months, how we're using speaking to scale our movement, and how we're training some of the top speakers and consulting on some of the top events in the industry. The other thing too is if you really love this, we are getting ready to launch volume 2 of Speak Your Way to Wealth, which is our book. And I couldn't be more excited for that. So you can Google it, or you can just DM me to get a copy. And this has been probably one of my favorite podcasts ever. Sean, I love, from the moment we connected, I love, Sean, what you're doing and Rock Your Gift. I come from an artist background. I went to art school, and I think there's not many people who lead with the artist identity. And when we lead with art as the identity, the artist context, everything can be art. Mm-hmm. Business can be art, offers can be art, sales can be art, success can be art, failure can be art, pain can be art. It's like you can channel every single emotion, identity that you go through into this masterpiece that we call life and business. So I love that so much because you really bring that forward inside of Rock Your Gift and inside this podcast. So thank you so much for having me today. This has been incredible.
You're welcome. It was an absolute pleasure. So I look forward to seeing you on the very next Rock Your Gift podcast. Until then, we out.